You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey, welcome to Cards to the Moon. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram, and with me recording episode number 46 is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John at Trade You at Recess. Okay, so it seems that hobby news comes in waves. Some weeks there's not a whole lot going on, and other weeks it's hard to stay on top of everything that is going on. And this past week is one of those busy weeks. So let's get right into it and see how much we can cover off the top. So first piece of news is Fanatics is at it again, this time partnering with the WWE, signing a long-term merch deal, which includes permission to manufacture and distribute WWE trading cards once their current deal expires, and I believe it's with Panini America, I think. And it also includes producing official WWE NFTs offered through Fanatics' Candy Digital division. So first, I want to ask you guys, were any of you wrestling fans growing up or now? And second, how do you feel about this deal?
Pretty sure everybody was.
Yeah, I was a huge wrestler. I grew up in the 80s, right? So that was in the crux of, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan,
Macho
the
Man.
Ultimate Warrior, Macho. Yeah. Like
big names. Yeah.
It was big. It was with WWF though, right?
Yeah.
It was that was a big change.
I think everybody took a break and then kind of got back into it when it was Stone Cold and The Rock. Yeah, but beyond that, I don't think I watched.
It's crazy. I think Topps had the license from 2005 to 2021 just recently, right? And then it's Panini going from 2022 to 25 now, right? And then I guess Fanatics now will take over in 2025. That's wild. That's some soap opera drama going on.
Vince McMahon making those deals.
I would imagine it had to have been a pretty penny because from what I heard, it was something like north of 10 million that Panini paid for that those rights. So I would assume Fanatics had to up the ante a bit,
Sure.
But I'm sure Fanatics can really benefit because of the apparel, right? Like they have ways that Topps and Panini can't really monetize as well as Fanatics because they have everything set up, right? So for me, like I said, Fanatics is always playing chess, one step ahead. It doesn't surprise me, honestly. They could be absolutely squeezing Panini dry, and who knows? They might acquire them for cheap down the road, right? So,
yeah,
you know what? It's crazy because it is a big deal, but I think Fanatics is definitely going to win on this long term just because they're so good at what they do, right? And with that said, I think Fanatics has a huge market in general with licensed merchandise, right? So think of patch autos now, like real patch autos, real game worn stuff. Not that in WWE you'd want like the wrestlers breathe for anything or the laundry tag of that, right? So yeah,
hey, some people might.
Jockstrap 101.
Yeah.
What do you think, John?
Oh man, you know what? I really hope that Josh Luber being genuine about being in the hobby and being somebody that takes care of the hobby, because Fanatics looks like they're taking over everything. They're gonna eventually just monopolize everything. So I really hope that that's true because man, it's getting pretty crazy. And I mean, I think most people would probably think, who cares about WWE? And I'm sure within the sports community, like at large, the hobby, the WWE cards may not be a big deal, but I mean, Fanatics is not stupid, right? Like WWE on their own, it could be a bit niche, but there's a huge crowd, enough to support its own little niche market. So, I mean, they're not stupid. They know there's big money in WWE to be made. So they're making huge moves, man. I have to think that at some point Upper Deck is on the firing line, right? They got They got hockey. Their brands include like Exquisite and PMG, and they have Marvel, which is like really going off. Yeah, I'm sure Fanatics has Upper Deck in there. It's like, I would imagine, because that, as much as people think it's just hockey, they have a lot more than.
I think it's a bold move in general. Like even though WWE people are like, it doesn't really pertain to me, or it matters to me. But I think objectively, when you look at like the strategic moves that Fanatics are making,
it's a power
incredible.
Move for sure.
Yeah, for sure, and it's gonna affect the hobby in ways. So I think it's definitely something that is worth looking into too, right? Seeing the possibilities there.
Right.
Yeah. For me, it's the same. Not really surprised. Maybe what I am surprised by is at the speed that Fanatics is going.
Right.
Like they are one after another, one acquisition after another. One different project we were just talking about Zero Cool a couple weeks ago, and Fanatics was part of that. So it's crazy how fast they're moving. Mm-hmm. All right, the second thing I wanted us to discuss off the top is the rebranding of CSG's graded cards. So many collectors, including us, thought their green grading label was just plain ugly, but now it's been revamped with a cleaner black border label. But they also changed their grading scale, with the new CSG 10 being considered their gem mint versus the old CSG 10 called perfect. So they also got rid of their subgrades too. So yeah, what are your thoughts on CSG's rebranding?
I personally like it because I thought CSG was
the look.
Yeah, well, the look, the brand. I mean, the thing is, they are credible, right? So I like the move by them because their slabs were just not cutting it. There are many people that wouldn't submit to CSG based on the looks of their slabs. So the fact that they've improved that is a bonus. And again, they've partnered up with eBay recently with the authentication. So it gives the credibility. So for them to kind of, I guess, thrive or be a part of this, market, I think it was inevitable that they had to do something that would capture, like I would actually consider sending in the cheaper stuff, right? Because right now, what is your options? SGC at the affordable price, right? Remember, it's all about serving that need, right? So I think it's a step in the right direction for CSG, right? And the fact that, they're letting, I guess, the old 9.5 slabs to cross over to a 10, right? I think a lot of people are going to take advantage of that, right? So,
why not?
Yeah, you want that 10 slab regardless, right? But again, people aren't going to pay PSA 10 prices, right? And then eventually people will see kind of where the value sits with all of them. But I think they have the credibility and backbone to, there's I know people are going to say, oh, another grading company, CSG's been around, but like this hobby's huge, and there can't be a lack of, if PSA is still turning around times are really slow, that means we need more grading available, just period, right? So I personally like it. I know some people are going to trash it, but to each their own, right? Like if you see value in a company, then use it. If you don't see value in a company, then don't use it, right? So
I like it a lot. Of the three of us, you guys trashed CSG a lot before. I didn't really mind their slabs at all. And to see
you like the green?
I didn't mind it. But you know what? Okay. I know that people had complaints that it just looked too big. It was just too big and white. So the change they made now, it's awesome, man. It's very subtle. And I'm sure, it's because of a business move. Like you don't want to change the actual slab because then you got to change all your machines, et cetera, et cetera. So they kind of sneakily, or if that's even a word, took a black border around the white to make the white look a lot smaller. I thought that was a great move. I think going to a 10, awesome move. Finally, somebody was like listening to the hobby and saying, hey, everybody just wants to see 10s. I think that was a brilliant move. I'm a little surprised they didn't keep subgrades. I feel like they were a bit, this is a big it's kind of becoming a debate now amongst people, whether or not you think subgrades are worthy or not. And some people get really annoyed that, you look at a BGS comp and you don't know if it's a proper comp because one is a min gem and one is a gem, and all these new collectors coming in, they get really confused and really annoyed. But I feel it's a bit short-sighted. I think if they made the move to the 10, they made the new slab. I heard their slabs are beautiful, by the way. Some YouTubers were saying that in hand, it's the cleanest or the clearest. You know how a lot of slabs come scratched or they have kind of buff marks. I heard it's like crystal clean. So some people have been saying positive things about that. They went to the 10, and I think they should have stuck with the subgrades, man. I think they should. And I saw the reasoning. They said something about, we found out that people weren't really using the subgrades, so we decided not to use it.
You know what?
CSG
actually, the subgrades weren't that popular for CSG, actually.
Right.
They said it was like 20% or something like that.
Right.
People weren't using subgrades, which is surprising when I looked into that. Yeah.
Right. By the same time, most of the CSG subs, if they were going in, they're probably low-end cards, right? Because
they were selling at $13 a pop.
Exactly. So if you're trying to look for best ROI on a small card, you're not going to pay an extra. I don't know what the charge is.
I think that's why CSG didn't care. They're like, they're cheap cards anyway. We'll scrap all the subgrades that were before because no one's going to care.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like it was a bit short-sighted. If people are going to send in big cards, I'm sure they would want subgrades. So at least if they left it as an option, I'm sure it was also a business move because you could probably pump out cards faster in case this new change starts to bring hordes of business. So I can get it all around, but bravo on the 10. A little bit disappointed they didn't keep subgrades. Overall, I think great moves all around.
Yeah, I'm with you about the subgrades. I wish they kept it because I heard like CSG was actually one of the grading companies that were more
tougher, right?
Is it tougher? Yeah, on grading. So that I would have thought distinguished them from other grading companies,
right?
But now that they got rid of it, they're kind of competing with SGC and PSA, which is
I think that was their intention from the get-go. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it was PSA.
Yeah, so
but it could have been a bit of a competitive advantage. Rather than just matching, because that's all that BGS has right now is the subgrades versus the competitors, right? And people
there is a
will
market
use
for
it.
subgrades, yeah.
Exactly, and I think now the only reason BGS gets used is some of these big cards, or especially the PMG market, people want to see those subgrades on PMGs, right? So there's certain niche areas where you want to see the subgrades, and why not? Like CSG has this opportunity to be like brand new, fresh. Anyways, rambling a bit, but
so you submitting?
I would submit for sure. I would submit. Yeah.
Okay. You buying CSG?
You know what? When you guys, you mentioned how the 9.5 gem previously is now crossing over.
You buying 10? All the 9.5s? I know you are.
Yeah. So I was actually looking at the 9.5.
It's a real play.
Yeah. I watched 4 or 5 9.5s that I thought were super cheap. They were like 60% PSA comps. And I was like, ooh, these might be good buys. And within 24 hours, they were all gone. The Barry Sanders I showed you. There's a Kobe Bryant Skybox rookie that I think they go for like 500 in a PSA 10 or 550. And it was listed at 199.
Wow.
That one went like right away. I watched it. I'm like, I should probably buy this. And then like that one went, and there's a couple others that went. So obviously people are already
yeah.
They're on it. Yeah. They're on it. Yeah. No, I like the move. I like the look better. But that being said, I'm not a huge fan of the new look either. It looks pretty simple. But I said that about SGC, and I love SGC now, right? So my opinion can be swayed over time.
As long as they keep giving you the 10s, Clark, right? It could be. We have a reveal tomorrow, so you might not.
For SGC 10, yeah.
Yeah, you
or
might
SGC,
not be happy with SGC tomorrow.
You start seeing a bunch of 8s. I hate SGC.
Follow up.
Yeah. Next week, if I say I hate SGC, you'll know why. All right. Okay. Third piece of news that I wanted to talk about. It actually broke the same day we're recording this episode, and it's probably the least surprising, but PSA is now offering their own vault service where you can store your cards with them after getting it authenticated and graded by them. I think it's reported that the vault will be in Delaware in a 100,000 square foot facility. So with this vault service, they'll be competing with other big names that provide a similar service like PWCC and Beckett as well. And one advantage that PSA, or I should say Collectors, which is a parent company of PSA, has is that anyone who chooses to vault with them, they can sell it through Golden Auctions, which Collectors also recently acquired. First thoughts on this piece of news. What do you guys think?
It's definitely interesting. I wouldn't have expected PSA. Like, I would like them to first and foremost grade all their cards. And,
Right.
But I mean, it's a big move. I understand. I would assume that it's in Delaware because of the tax benefits.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. So people could send away and buy, I guess, there. But yeah, I it's tough because it's like they're creating their own monopoly as well, right? With their own, and that's exactly what probably was the plan, was to capitalize and open more streams of revenue, essentially, right? With basically their, the resources that they have, right? So I think because so much news was on, all these moves with Fanatics, that it kind of like, you kind of like just hear PSA and it's all about, grading. That's it, right? So it's this news is pretty big. I think it's gonna, I don't know how I feel, to be honest, because it's so fresh and new, but we'll see, right? Like I'm just glad that, I guess Golden is part of Collectors, right? So it makes sense, but I'm not too happy with Golden myself, like just being a customer, right? Like the service that they provided. So I'm not completely sold on the idea, because I think service is important. I would like for them to, focus on that, but
right.
That's that's just my 2 cents.
That's fair.
One thing
at
a time, I guess. So I heard that once you get it graded and you send to the vault, or if whatever, you can go direct to Golden, right?
Right.
If you want to sell,
from the vault, you can directly list. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I mean, I don't think, me personally as a collector, I'm one to use a vault. Number one, I don't have enough gigantic cards to warrant using a vault. But for those that are in this to like quickly flip and constantly flip and have that money stream, and also maybe have some giant cards, I think this is great news all around. And the more of these big companies that start doing more and more of these big services like vaults, if there's a number of different vaults, obviously it's great news for the hobby, because you don't have one company that dominates a service and can charge whatever they want, right? So it's good to see PSA get into it, and some other company makes vault. I'm sure Fanatics is working their magic to make because they said it from the beginning, they're going to make a sort of like a one-stop seamless hobby experience, right? So I'm predicting that, vaulting, grading, all of that is in their strategy at some point in the future, I would guess. So it's all good news, man. I think it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this will probably apply more to the higher end collectors, right? Or the like straight investor types. I want to get this card graded by arguably the number one grading company right now, PSA. And if it tends, then it's going to 3, 4, 5x the value of the card. And then, as an investor, I would probably want to flip that or sell it. And, what better way to do it when is that worth that much than to do it like through a Golden Auctions or, PWCC auction. So it's like a seamless transition, and it totally makes sense to me as well. How many people will use that service? I guess that's the big question. Mm-hmm. And what, like, even thinking downstream, what will that do to future card shows if everyone does that? We're not going to see, if a lot of people use this service, when you go to card shows, you're not going to see those big cards anymore, because they're going to all be vaulted, right? So like, I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe it'll take time for people to get used to the idea of vaulting their high-end cards. Mm-hmm. Some people might just like having it in their possession, right? So I don't think you can automatically assume that all high-end collectors are going to use this service. People might just, still want to hold on to them, show it off, flex. That's part of human nature too. So yeah, I think it's a good option. I think it makes sense for PSA to do it. Over time, we'll see how popular this service is.
Right.
Okay, yeah, so I think we covered three of the bigger news this past week. And as more news comes up, we'll talk about it on future podcast episodes. All right, let's move on now then to hobby headlines. So actually, another piece of news we didn't talk about off the top is the bit of controversy that happened with the Blez and Leighton break of flawless cases recently in Vegas, I believe last week, where the Mint Collective was held. There were two bikini-clad models standing in front of the boxes during the break, and there were complaints about how distasteful that was, especially in the context of trying to get more women in the hobby. And, but others argued it was Vegas. So what do you expect, right? So we got these two extremes. But we could certainly talk about that. But what I wanted to touch upon here in this episode is the greater theme of inclusivity in the hobby, because that's what people were talking about too, on top of what happened with this break. So my question to you guys is, do you think, A, it's something the hobby needs to address, this issue of inclusivity? And it doesn't have to just be about getting women into the hobby. We can also talk about getting the next generation of kids involved. It could be about onboarding new collectors or just investor types, things like that. And B, if so, what are some ideas to move the hobby forward in that direction?
Yeah, those are very, very tough questions, Clark. I don't even know if I want to answer these.
Okay.
It's tough because, yes, I 100% agree. We need, even more women in the hobby. There was a good point. I forgot where I listened to, but basically, women are very important in everybody's lives, right? So, just imagine, more women that are knowledgeable in this field, right? Like birthday presents become better, investment purposes. Maybe they see the value in, these investments and why, a lot of men are, all over collecting, right? So I think in that sense, I see it. And what happened, I guess, with Leighton and Blez, I think that is what stirred up the biggest issue. So it's a very tough thing to, I guess, speak upon, because I'm a person that always believes that the individual is responsible. We're all adults, and hopefully, you make the right choices. And yes, for sure, we have to, stand up for what we believe in, but at the same time, people are going to be people, and until they change, then we can't expect them. And I think there's going to be more division, if anything, right? Because I think the big issue was, you seen it in the chats, the comments. It was, I guess a lot of people were turned off, disgusted. They did not enjoy it at all. And I think people just need to realize and see that for themselves. Obviously this whole situation wasn't a great event, and not to say, pass judgment, whether it's a good event or a bad event. I think it's a learning experience for a lot of people, right? And what we need to do as individuals, I think for the most part, people stand up for the right thing. And I think more and more people just need to do that. And we can't put that expectation always on, I guess, other people. What I say is, it's, if everybody worries about themselves and becomes better, I think as a whole, we will become better, and we'll weed out those people as we do it. But I think pointing the finger is not kind of the way, this is, you know what I mean? It just causes a lot of division, because there's going to always be two sides of the story, right? And I 100% agree with everything. The majority of the hobby agrees. It was distasteful, right idea, poor execution. It looks like a money grab to a lot of people, and that turns people off, right? So, but again, that's their choice. They're adults, and they're going to be held accountable to whatever bad press they get. And it is what it is. That's where I sit on it. That's why it's very tough, right? To we sit on the sidelines and just talk about it. But yeah, I agree. It would be better if we could, look out for the kids as well. Do stuff more, that can draw kids, can draw women, can draw, other groups of people that, that we could share this hobby with, because for most people, they love it. It's not just an investment. You know, this is something that, you know, people want to get away from life. You know, they feel like this is a way that, you know, they could even prosper on it, and they enjoy, genuinely enjoy doing. Not a lot of people in the last, you know, I'd say 20 years, when this world went so quick, are enjoying what they do. And things like cards give, you know, people opportunity even to create new businesses, and, you know, create a new lifestyle change for them, right? So sharing these experiences, I think, is something that, you know, I personally want to do, even with the people that are in my networks that aren't in kind of like in the card industry, and kind of show them why I like the card industry and why it's amazing, right? So I that's the biggest disappointment, I think, in all of this, is that it left a distasteful mouth in a lot of people. But with that said, I don't believe in good or bad. I believe in, you know, we learn from experiences, good or bad. And through those experiences, we get better. We evolve, right? So I'm hoping that more people will look, you know, at that perspective as well. And, you know, not be so judgmental, I guess. Like, we all make mistakes. Was it the greatest execution? Absolutely not. It was terrible, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're all adults, and, you know, if it's not great entertainment for your kids, you're an adult. Turn off the TV or turn off the social media and go elsewhere, right? And I think that's the most important thing, is us as a society being able to, you know, just be in unison in that sense, right? So
right. No, I appreciate that take. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think, you know, the issue with being inclusive for females, kids, and whatnot, it's certainly an issue, because we all know, we're all guys, you know. What happened in the breaking that event is it, and I can understand it, is as somebody that's not a male or of that, you know, in watching that, you would think it just looks like a big, huge boys club, right? And that is, you know, I think overall that's a big issue, because when we think about sports or things in general, in the history of what we've been doing, like the three of us and our friends, you think of, oh, we're going to do like a big golf trip. All right, man, like boys trip, here we go. Or like Super Bowl night. Oh, here's boys night, you know, boys night out. Or sports card collecting. It's like boys time, right? So I think we've been, so many men have been so conditioned to be like, this is boys time. This is boys time. This is boys time. This is the result. Like, whatever product you're showing out there, obviously to people that aren't of the boys, they'll feel left out, because it's clearly not catering to them, right? The problem with the Blez thing is, I feel bad for them on the one hand, because they've been doing this forever. Like, if you ever watch one of their live broadcasts, like, those dudes sometimes take their shirts off. Like, they do this stuff, right? It's a little bit not as like super classy. And I would say on the flip side, Leighton does it pretty straightforward. There's no like fluff, super marketing. They just straight break. They're generally pretty classy about it. But I think the issue was this, because the Mint Collective was happening. Everybody's eyes were on that event. And then they marketed this thing as like the biggest thing that's happening. Right. So, you know, rightly or wrongly, they basically, you know, represented the hobby in that moment. And I think that's the issue now, is that everyone's eyes was,
good point.
To be truthful, kids and stuff shouldn't really be watching like flawless breaks. This is like super high end insanity. Like, we don't want to teach kids to basically be gambling. That's what they're doing. It's like we're watching. It's like me and my 8-year-old watching, like, you know, poker night, like professional poker. That's basically what was happening, right? So that's not the audience. But at the same time, I think because of that big event and they market it that way, they you know, inadvertently became a complete representation of the hobby at that moment. And, you know, I guess they do deserve a lot of the criticism, right? Like, you know, I watched about an hour and a half, admittedly. And, you know, they had the females in the background. At first I was like, why are they? And then I was like, okay, it's Vegas. I guess it makes sense. But still, like, why are there females in the background? You know what I felt really bad was, I guess they had a lot of sponsors. And what they would do, and I don't know how much these sponsors paid for, to have some of their advertisements go up. But literally every box break they did, they would have a little bit of a break and maybe chat. And right in front of the camera, they'd put the case down. And the case would literally have a piece of paper that was printed from a printer. And it would say like Hyung's sports cards, like with a piece of tape on it. Like that was the advertising. It was just sitting in front of the camera. It was like just the shoddiest advertisement.
They were kind of boasting on camera that they put the event together in 3 days, and it was kind of like a boast. But then I think that's what backfired, is a lot of people,
you could see that was
you could see it, and it was you're charging $40,000 a spot, like, and you're claiming that you're gonna put the greatest show on earth, and the gods kind of played, like, I mean, nothing hit really.
Right.
It was.
They literally did nothing different than they usually do.
Exactly.
It was like a very normal.
Right. Yeah. So it's. I think a lot of people too were like the last couple weeks in the hobby was amazing. If you look at like the Drake, the Golden, the vibe, the energy in the hobby was amazing. And the momentum with the Mint Collective event in Vegas, the shows, people making deals, it was great. So the expectation was very, very high. And I think it was so polarizing. Everything was so polarizing. Even if you look at Blez and Leighton, they're two polarizing acts. Like Leighton is like as monotone as, or like kind of like he has his personality. Right. Blez is they're doing them, and that's the thing. It's like they're catering to their kind of group, right? And I don't think the sponsors knew what they were getting into, to be honest. They just thought, what, the hobby's great. You got Drake, busting, boxes with Ken Golden, on live. People in the comment section seem to love it, So I think that also the expectation was totally different than what people experienced the last couple weeks in the hobby, right? So I think it was a very sour taste in a lot of people's mouth, right, from that.
Right.
No, I agree with your guys' points for sure. I think everything you guys shared just tells me that we're still pretty early in the hobby. You know what I mean? Like other industries, like sports industries, their advertising is polished, and their relationships with their partners are, they know what to expect, right? And we're like kind of going with the flow now. We're learning as we go along.
Absolutely.
So these are, for me, these are growing pains. I guess at the end of the day, like as we see the hobby grow, and this is what we all want to see, I think the easiest way to grow the hobby is to go after the female demographic first. I was thinking about this, like, if anyone knows about collectability, the importance of collectibles, I think it's females. Like, my wife collects bags and shoes, 100%. And they know the value of collecting, right? Mm-hmm. So,
and they're gonna take care of it as well.
Yeah. Imagine they get into cards. Oh, the business is gonna start booming again.
100%. Right? I think it'll totally change the dynamics, absolutely, for the better, right? Yeah. So 100% encourage it.
It's interesting to observe, because I watched both live streams. I watched the Blez and I watched Drake and Ken Golden breaking at the restaurant. The feeling you get, right? Because Blez, I felt like I was just watching professional gambling, but it's literally the exact same event. I am watching people break flawless. Like, that's the entertainment. But the one side, you feel like it's like professional gambling. And then Drake's side, I mean, whether you love him or hate him, I thought it was amazing. Drake genuinely wanted to collect. Like, he doesn't care. Let's be honest. He doesn't want to get that LeBron triple logo man because he wants to cash out on $1 million. He literally wants it as a fan. Like, I actually think that card looks awesome, and I want to try to find it, right? Clearly nobody has it so that he can just straight up buy off of. So he's going to go out and buy boxes and rip it, right? And when you watch Drake, he's very genuine and he's got a lot of money. So in context, ripping that much flawless is within his wheelhouse. So it's like watching a true hobby event happen. It's the exact same thing, but one looks like gambling and one was like watching pure hobby goodness, right? So it was interesting to kind of observe the differences and the feelings you get from both events.
But for sure. I was able to catch the Drake break with Golden live. It was like 1:00. They're breaking late into the night. It was like 1:30. Just watching them, and you're right. Like from what I experienced, just watching, like there are definitely more guys watching it in the comments, but there's females too, like saying, "Hey, Drake," and like it just seemed like an environment where people felt more welcome, and not so much a boys' club like you were saying, John, earlier.
Right.
So I think it's just a smarter business move, in my opinion, to get more people involved in the hobby, especially like I said, females that do have the income as well to spend in on the hobby. And like talking with kids, like that's always been a challenge too, right? Like we always talk about how do we get kids more involved, this next generation of kids, especially with the price points of some of these cards. But there are cheaper products, and I think making it more fun to break and just kind of collecting, just doing what we always say, collect what you love. Like a lot of kids love sports too, and they have athletes they look up to. It's an easy way to get them on board, and why not, right? Just get they'll be spending money soon enough. Get a bit older.
Just don't introduce them to Flawless their first break.
Yeah.
Can I have that for Christmas?
It's gonna be a tough hobby for Daddy.
I know.
So, anything else you guys want to say about just inclusivity in the hobby? Even for newer collectors, they're getting into it.
You know what? For me, I always say with anything, it's a matter of doing your due diligence. A lot of people coming into the hobby, they're kind of shy or they're fearful, and you're only fearful of things that you don't understand. So if you do your due diligence, like it's the same concept when, remember, John, we were talking. You started in the hobby early. You're buying $100, $200 cards, and it was like, whoa, it's getting up there, right? And once you started, buying your, $1,000 cards, it started becoming easier because you understood, hey, you know what? There's nothing to be really scared of, because if I, sell this, I'll get my money back plus the profits. And you start kind of like, I guess, being able to. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, I totally lost my point.
No. I think I get where you're going with it. You start to understand, and if you're knowledgeable enough to be confident in the investments or cards that you're collecting, it's no different. Like a $50 card versus $1,000. At that point, it's just money, right? And crazy as that is to say, but
it's just the lack of understanding is the fear. So the people coming new into the hobby, I just encourage them, like I said, to do your due diligence, because once you kind of see what it's all about and how it works, it's an amazing space. It's an amazing space that's growing, and don't be shy. Kids, women, anybody, older generation, get your parents involved, right? See if that's a retirement strategy there. But I'm all for it. Any way we could spread positivity in the hobby, I'm all for it. And inclusivity, bringing other celebrities, bringing other demographics that we don't hit usually. It can only make the hobby better if we go forward.
Right.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah, I think going forward, whatever business, even for ourselves, I think especially for all men out there in doing business within the hobby, I think if we try to remember not to have the mindset of like boys club or boys time, this is like my time away from the wife kind of thing. I think that's kind of like naturally the way you would think when you think of sports. I think, for guys there, we have a responsibility to kind of break that mold. So hopefully that'll start to, seep into the hobby. And then for kids, I mean, I think the upcoming next couple of years, especially this year and the next, with cards kind of going up and being a lot more expensive, but at the same time, that really thwarting off a lot of these sort of flippers that are like lining up at Walmarts and whatnot. I think it's clear that this year we're going to have a lot more cards sitting on shelves. You're probably already seeing it, which is good because you're going to have the opportunity to take your kids on a random Wednesday, walk into a Walmart or Target, and pick up a couple of cards and enjoy the night with your kids, right? Yes, the cards are still a little bit expensive, but at least it's accessible a little bit more than before when flippers were lining up at Targets and fighting each other and just a lot of this nonsense, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like the next couple of years, kids are going to be, by default, a lot more included than they were in the last couple of years, where the hobby was bonkers and it was only suited to those that had money bag pockets, right? So,
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see that. I think I just want to add one final thought. Like, there's this bit of controversy, but I think overall, like, we're still headed in the right direction when it comes to the hobby. Definitely seeing more females participating in the hobby. On my Instagram feed, I'm seeing that to be true, and obviously you can grow some more. Even kids breaking and kids getting involved with their own channels. That's kind of cool to see. So yeah, I think, it'll take time, but yeah, like you guys said, we just got to push forward and just make sure that everyone feels welcome and, positive environment so they can learn more about the hobby. They're not intimidated to step in and, to learn, what this hobby is all about. Right. So cool. I'm sure there'll be ongoing discussion about this topic as the hobby definitely grows bigger. All right, let's move on then to our new segment that we're calling Top Target. Now, here in Toronto, we have the upcoming Canada Sports Card Show coming up on the first week of April. And actually, we'll be setting up a table. So if you're in the GTA, drop by the table. We'd love to see you, meet you guys IRL in real life. So I thought, with the upcoming show, I want to ask you guys, in today's market, what kind of cards, whether it's specific or general, are you targeting to get either by trade or straight up cash, as we prepare for the show? And hopefully it's useful for all our listeners too that have upcoming local shows in their own area. So yeah, is there anything you're targeting right now?
For me, I just look at anything that catches my eyes. I really like going to card shows because you kind of see sometimes the really rare stuff. And, those are the great times to kind of get your grail cards, or at least, you're face to face, you deal with it in person and you see cards that, that you might not see, ever. Right. So I always look forward to, I like the bigger card shows because I find like people start bringing out the big guns out there. So I always go grail hunting at card shows. And for me, I always look for just good deals on inventory. I think especially for me, going into auctions as well as, we have another show coming up in June, I believe, at the Toronto Sports Expo. That's a bigger show. So we're going to have a bigger booth there. So for me, I'm kind of targeting, just inventory in general. And I think that was kind of like your play too, Clark, during the off season, is to get more inventory. So I love card shows because this is where you make deals, bring a lot of cash, bring a lot of slabs if you have, and start making deals. I know Johnny's always on a mission when we're at card shows. He has his backpack. He's pacing 15,000 steps in the span of 2 hours, no breaks, just making deals. So yeah, like I love it. I love just the environment, and I'm looking forward to actually the card show coming up.
What kind of grail cards are you hoping to see?
You know what? Doesn't matter. Any sport, any rare, like very rare cards. Because for me, I look at sports cards very long term, believe it or not. Obviously, I do, buy and sell, the cheaper stuff. But for me, it's the opportunity to ever, come across cards ever again. Especially in the lower pop. Yes, they're more expensive, but for me, it's a long-term investment where, I'd rather not spend it on going out. I'd rather spend it on something that, will be a nice, ROI potentially in the future. Or maybe, it's just a, collection piece at that point, right? But you don't come across grails every day is what I'm saying, right? So shows are a great way to justify that. It's not like you go on a Wednesday night and just go on eBay. I'm going to drop, $30,000 on a grail card or whatever it is, right? So a local card show is something to look forward to, kind of, see what is good for your kind of, collection and your habits, right? So I love it. I'm not really targeting anything specific. Any low pop, like I said, pop 1, pop 2, pop 3 cards, I'm all for.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. I am targeting one guy in specific. I'm opposite of Hyung. I'm targeting Luka Doncic. So Hyung, do me a favor, stay away from low pop Luka Doncic. That's what
I don't think I would go there. Not low pop on Luka. That thing, you got to give a kidney.
No, I'm obviously ideally I would love like a numbered Luka, but I think a more realistic target, if it's available, would be Luka Optic Hollow. Something like that. I would love to see at the show and hopefully make a deal on. That's it. I have one target. It's Luka. I think he's a great buy right now, short and long term. So I'm going in. That's it. But like Hyung said, when you go to these shows, nobody has a singular thing they want. Like everybody, we're all addicts. We're all crazy. We all want everything. So there's a lot of times you walk in there and you're targeting, like I'll walk in there, I'm targeting Luka, and I'll get completely sidetracked because there's a beautiful Tatis and the price is right and the guy's willing to do a trade and like, boom, okay, I gotta do this right now, right? So
you've blown your budget in 15 minutes.
I guess I'm not getting that Luka.
Yeah, so I am fully aware that there's a great chance I'm gonna get completely sidetracked, but going in, I would love to get a Luka.
Nice.
Yeah. I would have said the same thing, but I recently picked up a Luka Doncic silver Prizm PSA 10. So glad I finally got that done. And I'm kind of looking for like the blue chips, right? Like if I could find a good deal on some of the blue chip cards. So for me, hopefully a Patrick Mahomes Optic Hollow PSA 10. Nice. I know I was kind of looking for that one at the last summer show, but the comps were a bit too high. But yeah, you're right. Like sometimes you go in with the list of cards that you want, and honestly, the reality sometimes is that everyone's trying to sell it for way higher than you're willing to pay.
Right. For sure.
So either you're gonna go home with nothing, or like you just said, John. Like if you see a card that you think is a really great deal, yeah, that's a perfect opportunity to pick one up. And the other thing is like with local card shows, like anything for your PC, whatever you collect, you might be able to see one, that you can't find one as easily online, right? So, if it's your hometown athletes that you're trying to collect, or you're set building, those kind of opportunities sometimes are there at local card shows. So yeah, I think especially with the market kind of still down compared to what it was before. Like that's why I'm looking forward to local card shows. I'm hoping that those prices of those blue chips will kind of reflect it to a certain degree. You know what I mean? Like that's not like, oh, the comps are still from 2021 numbers when the market was a lot higher, right?
I hope like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I hope after the summer show, things have kind of, they're probably still holding their stack if that's what they're pricing it at, right? So I'm hoping they're going to see this event coming up in April and then again in June as a way to like liquidate some of their cards. And then, maybe we'll find those good deals. But that's my hope. Blue chips at good prices, and, factor in like the 10% you'll save, not going through eBay, things like that too, right? Hopefully dealers will factor that in too. So yeah, Patrick Mahomes for me. I think it's the off season now. They just traded Tyreek Hill, so maybe there's some, people not as confident with the Kansas City Chiefs. If anyone's doubting, I'm there to swoop him up.
I think there's gonna be a lot of people selling off Patrick Mahomes, to be honest.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Another thing I just thought about, like, yeah, we, in Canada, a lot of hockey cards. So any good deals on SP,
right.
Authentic Future Watch. I'm gonna look out for those too.
You definitely see a way better, variety of hockey up in Toronto shows. So that's always a bonus.
Sure.
Is if you're looking to get into hockey, it's a perfect opportunity.
Yep. Austin Matthews, if I find a good deal. Man, he's killing it.
So expensive.
And that's the double-edged sword, right? Because everyone's into hockey, the price might not be as cheap because every Canadian's gonna gun for those great hockey
it's
cards.
as liquid as it gets at our shows, right?
That's right. All right. So with that, let's end off the show with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And this week we're doing our regular edition where we just put up 2 cards or 2 sets and we debate which one we would rather have or which one we would rather invest in. All right. I'm going to start off. We usually let Hyung start off, but I'm going to start off because we got a listener submission for our Pick One this week. And it's from Chris on Instagram. And he wanted to know, I think his original Pick One was a Bobby Orr rookie card. Speaking of hockey, Bobby Orr rookie card, PSA 6, I think tops. And going against that will be Wayne Gretzky. He said Wayne Gretzky PSA 6 rookie card. I'm assuming it's O-Pee-Chee instead of tops because we said before O-Pee-Chee is worth a lot more than the tops, which looks almost identical. But if you look at the price comps, the O-Pee-Chee Wayne Gretzky PSA 6 last sold for about just over $4,000 compared to a Bobby Orr Topps rookie card PSA 6 that sold for about $15K. So there's a huge difference. If we kept with Chris's 1v1, I don't know, is it a sweep that we would go with the Bobby Orr because of the price difference, or do you see value in the cheaper Gretzky?
You go for it, John.
Oh, that'd be tough. Because sorry, what's the price on the PSA 6 Gretzky? You were saying
4,200 last sold.
4,200. I don't think it would be a sweep on the Bobby Orr because you can't 18,000. That's not everybody's wheelhouse. That's certainly not my wheelhouse.
Sure,
We're talking for
Fair.
many people, this would be like the upper echelon Grail kind of card, right? Whereas the Gretzky PSA 6, that's it's fairly liquid. It's kind of in the wheelhouse for a lot of collectors. You can probably move that card pretty easily. So who knows? But if we were to, sorry, did you say PSA 8 for the Gretzky?
PSA 8 would be
comps. Comps.
Direct comp, right? At the same value. Yeah, I'd rather do that comparison because now we're talking same kind of clientele.
So that's easier for sure.
Yeah,
right?
I think that would be a little bit easier comparison.
Okay, let's say this. This is right on the fly. 3 or 4 of those PSA 6 Gretzkys, or 1 really nice PSA 6 Bobby Orr.
That's a good one.
And I should say the pop count, I checked. I believe it was, I got to double check actually, but it's a lot lower obviously for the Bobby Orr, like in the hundreds, 150 or something like that. Whereas the PSA 6 Gretzky is in the 700s.
Oh man, that's tough. This is
sorry, correction. I'm just checking right now. The PSA 6 O-Pee-Chee Gretzky rookie pop count is 1,358.
Okay.
Yeah, it's high.
This is tough because I think it's like 2 completely different types we're talking about here. Because Bobby Orr rookie, that's not necessarily liquid. That's not necessarily in the eyes of many investors in sports cards. So this question is more for like a true hockey fan. It's either you're a true hockey fan and you're going to do this comparison, or you're an investor and you're going to do this comparison. As a true hockey fan, I think both are Grail cards. But for me, as a true hockey fan, you're going to spend this much money and you're looking for like a Grail. I mean, it's no question it's the Bobby Orr, because that card in any grade is really tough to get. And a PSA 6 is actually a very good grade for a card that old. Hence why it goes for 18,000 plus. It would probably be the choice. But if on the flip side, if you're an investor, it would make all the sense in the world to go get the Gretzky because you're flipping that card and moving cash quickly, right? So it's a bit of a tough comparison. I think based on the two, because I'm a collector first and foremost and I like hockey, I will choose Bobby Orr, but that is completely from a hockey, true hobbyist perspective, not from an investor's perspective.
Sense.
Yeah, because Bobby Orr, I don't think he's not I think hockey's not there yet for things like Bobby Orr. That
Bobby
kind of
Orr's
stuff
a little
to move
niche,
quick.
and
He's
there's a boatload of nostalgia in there, and I already know this question. The age of the guy's he has to be an older gentleman. At least, playing in the 80s, or if he's collecting, if he knows who Bobby Orr is what I'm saying. A lot of people, I think, in this day and age won't know who Bobby Orr is. As a kid growing up in the 80s, like that was a huge, like Ken Dryden, Bobby Orr, Bobby Hall, like all these like vintage hockeys were like the grails, right? So there's a lot of nostalgia, I think. And John, you hit it on the nail. If you look at it from even like a die-hard collector standpoint, I think it's a no-brainer with the Bobby Orr, just because it would be a grail. And I think over time vintage hockey is just like vintage anything, right? It's always gonna be a great investment in the long term.
Right.
But with that said, you're right. Like if you're looking to make a quick buck, I think the right play is definitely Gretzky, if that's your boat, right? So I think it's two different people that are interested. To me, it's all about relativity in the market today that dictates supply and demand. How many people are lining up for Bobby Orr, to buy? So how many sellers do you have? Then that goes into the case of liquidity, right? So the PSA 6 Gretzky's, you're going to be able to sell with whatever market value is, right? So, but I'm going to still say, because I appreciate cards and I'm not here to encourage the quick flips, right? Although, we all do it. I'm going to go Bobby Hall. Bobby Orr. Yeah, Bobby Orr. That's an iconic card. And like you said, John, a PSA 6 is a crazy grade for that card. And I think long term, if you're into holding, it's a no-brainer, right? So I think you get like I said, I'd rather have a PSA 8 Gretzky, though, at that point. If we're talking just straight up value.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I thought this would be an easy question, but I guess we talked it out, so it was more challenging, because I'm like, oh, Gretzky for sure, liquid, I can flip, But I was just looking at Card Ladder, and if you bought the Bobby Orr PSA 6 in 2014, so 7-8 years ago, it was worth $2,500.
Yeah,
and now
it's crazy.
It's sold last year for almost $15,000.
Right.
So I think, like you guys said, if you want to do a quick flip, probably something more liquid like the Gretzky's is your play. But if you're good with you love the Grail card and you're holding, and you see appreciated value over time,
right?
Yeah, Bobby Orr is just going to go up.
And you got to remember that Bobby Orr card's not going to be selling daily, so people aren't willing to sell this card. So what happens over time is comps start to increase. Like you see that you mentioned the 2,500, and then it creeps up, and then there's really no volatility. It's just a steady climb, constantly. But whereas the Gretzky, you have 1,000 of them. People are like, I need money. It's available. That's what tanks prices every day, right? So there's that in mind, and that's what I love about the lower pop cards, is for that reason. It protects it, right? So,
yep, for sure. So just to get more detail, it's the Topps rookie card for Bobby Orr is in 1966, and the pop count's 133, so really low.
Yeah. What's the highest graded? Do you know?
That's a good question. Let me just check. Card Ladder has PSA 8, which is going for about 50,000.
I'm sure there's a PSA 10 somewhere. A bunch of them. I'd have to imagine.
Yeah.
Well, not a bunch of them, but I'm sure there are.
Some in existence, yeah.
And somebody's, like locked away in a safe, never coming out.
6-figure card right there. Yeah. Okay. So you guys go Bobby Orr. I'm going Gretzky anyways. I lack patience, so Gretzky. All right, Hyung, let's go.
All right, for my pick one, obviously I try to make it realistic as possible. It's something that I always battle. I always like to draw the comparison between Topps Chrome Blue Refractors, so out of 150, right, and Topps Complete Set Foil Board out of 162. Okay, so specifically guys like Tatis and Luis Robert, you'll see very similar pricing for a blue PSA 10 as a hobby foil board or a foil board, true foil board, PSA 10. So pop counts usually lower on the foil board, I believe, just because it's harder to gem because of surface issues. So usually pop counts are, I'd say, between 10 and 15 on a foil board and maybe 30 on a blue. So which one are you guys taking between a blue refractor versus a hobby foil board? So we'll use Tatis as the athlete example, and also a guy like Luis Robert, because the prices both sell at approximately the same right now.
Right. Oh man, this is tough. Hyung, you know I've always wanted that foil board card of Tatis.
Yeah, you love the foil board. Yeah, a lot of people do love foil boards. Yeah.
Yeah. I got sidetracked at the last card show and ended up with the blue refractor of Tatis. It wasn't a target of mine, but it was, again, one of those things you walk in
right.
and it just happened. So I own the blue, true blue. And now if you were to ask me, would I just straight up swap if I had the opportunity? I don't know. I've grown to love the blue. I think it looks really nice, and it's a Topps Chrome. It's a refractor. But you know what? I can't. Some people are against complete set because it's not the true flagship. I mean, it is the flagship image for Tatis, especially. But it is a little bit more niche. But those that like foil board love foil board. Like, there are people that are all about it. And I think Hyung and I are one of those people. And I'm going to actually pick the foil board, even though I own the blue.
That's interesting.
The pop count is so juicy. And it's paper. So you can't imagine it's going to go any higher. It's complete set. So not many people are ripping those things. And it looks beautiful. And there's just something that is so desirable about a nice paper flagship parallel. Right? Like, how desired is the ID, the Independence Day and black out of 67, like, those are big time cards. And I think foil board is obviously not at that level, but it's very, very highly desired. And I guess it is a lot more niche, but I don't know. I think I'm a little biased. I've always loved that foil board card. So I think just as a complete collector, I would love to own it. So I'm going to pick the Tatis. I will say, though, for Luis Robert, I'm so disappointed this year that they went with like a hobby and a retail version. Obviously, right. It's just a cash grab to create more product. But I feel like that really watered down the foil board. I feel like foil board was like such a magical parallel, and then they just made retail and hobby. And like, oh, come on, guys! Like,
yeah, the retail is no bueno.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing. But yeah, if you pick the Luis Robert hobby foil board, that's a beautiful card too.
So can you guys explain, like, I'm not as familiar with foil board, like with the complete set, is it just a special insert?
Okay, so this is the other, I guess, the deal with foil boards. Foil boards is complete set. So meaning you're buying the whole complete set at a Walmart or a Target, and you get a pack of foil board cards in that it was called hobby complete set, right. And they're a pack of 5. In the complete set, it's a full set. I believe like 700 is the roster. So being able to pull a foil board is crazy, crazy rare. Like, because you're doing the whole set, whereas Topps Chrome is limited to 200 cards in the set, right? Because not everybody from the complete set make it into Topps Chrome, right? So there's that, I guess, desirability in the complete set. The fact that it's so hard to pull. And then the surface is usually tough to gem as well. So those are the two factors of what makes a foil board 10, PSA 10, I guess, attractive to a lot of hobbyists.
Right. And then you're not going to buy an overpriced complete set to rip a pack of 5, right? Because that's all you're really going for at that point.
Exactly.
Right. Okay,
but I've seen people do it. Trust me,
and he's talking right now.
Yeah, guilty. I'm looking at myself right now. But anyways,
that was good. No, that was a good education. Man, I think it's subjective in terms of the look. So I'll take your Chrome Blue Refractor, John, if you're swapping. So that's what I'm going with. But if more people were aware of like the rareness, I guess, of scoring a foil board, I think that might sway my decision, because at the end of the day, if I see it as like something I want to sell later as a bigger investment, I think Chrome Blue, True Blue Refractor numbered will always be somewhat liquid. So, and I can't complain about the look. It just, the refractor, the shininess, it just looks sharp. And, I do agree too. Like when I see a nice foil board card, it's pretty sweet. But yeah, like I don't know if there's enough people that truly appreciate how rare a foil board is. And I don't know how easy it would be to sell later on. So I think for that reason, I'm going with the blue refractor in this case.
Right. Good call. The reason why I said it was interesting, Johnny, is because I have the foil board Tatis, and my answer is blue.
Why? Why is that?
You know what? It's weird because I love that Tatis foil. One thing with foil boards, specifically in a PSA case, not a BGS 10, I will actually take a PSA 10 foil board over a BGS 10. I know it sounds crazy, and the owners of BGS 10s are gonna hate me for this, but the slab just looks way better. The foil board, the sparkle foil, really pops on a PSA slab. So I always like the foil board. I still am a huge foil board, but my liking to Topps Chrome True Blue colors and True Golds lately, like I don't know what it is. It's just it's luring me into that. And Clark's right. Liquidity again is huge, and I know comps for the Tatis foil board were tough. Like you never, if one comp
maybe
is low,
one sale a year, maybe.
True. Yeah.
Right, and it's tough to get rid of if you need to, right? But not saying that those are cards that you'd ever get rid of, but just lately for me, being an owner of a foil board, I actually have the hobby foil board of the Luis Robert as well as the blue. And that's why I asked, because I paid basically identical amount. I paid a little more for the blue refractor, but I said which one would I want to keep, and for me it was the blue. I'd keep blue. So being an owner of the foil board and the Tatis, and you being the owner of the blue, right? It's funny how like you said the opposite, but it's weird. If you asked me would you do a straight trade, I probably wouldn't.
I was gonna say maybe you can work out a trade, but
I say the same thing. I'm crazy. Like, oh man, I don't know.
But I'm gonna choose blue refractor.
Good one. Wow. I like it.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, Johnny.
All right, boys. I'm gonna go with two of the top, arguably the two top stars in their respective sports, with very underrated values. So we're going 2015 Jokic Prizm PSA 10. Pop 718, selling for just under 600 USD, versus the 2014 Mookie Betts Topps Chrome PSA 10, Pop 541, selling for just under 800. Who are you picking?
How much was
Go
Nikola?
ahead.
Sorry.
Nikola is just under 600, and Mookie Betts is just under 800.
Yeah, I have a Mookie Betts Topps Chrome Red Hot foil, so I love Mookie. I think he's underrated, but I think Jokic is even more underrated in his respective sport, and is a cheaper price. What's that pop count? Okay, it's just a little bit higher than the Mookie Betts Topps Chrome. But yeah, I don't know if you're asking me now. There's a chance that Jokic could win back-to-back MVPs. And I think for that reason, I'm playing that upside. And I'm going to go Jokic. Honestly, I've been saying this to anyone that would listen. I'm like, Jokic is super underrated compared to, some of the other top players that we're always talking about, whether it's KD or Steph Curry or even Giannis to a certain degree, right? But yeah, I think the guy's so talented and just under $600, man, that's a steal. I'm jumping all over that.
You know what? That's it's tough. I think I see the value in Nikolai for sure. But me being a baseball guy, I'm gonna go Mookie Betts just because I know that how rare that Chrome is. Like you could see the pricing in his Topps update. They float around $300. Chromes, have gone up to 1,000, I remember, in its prime, probably maybe even more, to be honest, in the height of the kind of boom. So I'm going to go Mookie Betts, actually. I think his Chrome card is a huge Chrome card. I think it'll do better than his Bowman Chrome first, which is weird, but maybe it has to do with pop counts, but I think both are great value, to be honest. But I'm going to go Mookie Betts.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I posed this question because I was just trying to think of, some of the names that have been popping up in terms of underrated studs. This one is still tough. I don't know. I'm literally 51-49. I don't think there's really a wrong answer here. I'm going to side with Clark and pick Jokic by a hair. I think Mookie Betts, he's on the Hall of Fame trajectory. And I think once people start appreciating just how nasty this guy is and how consistent he's been, it's bound to just go nuts. Like that, I think that Chrome card is gonna, just like Hyung said, it's like a fireworks waiting to happen. But I'll pick for the short run. I'm gonna pick Jokic because I can't believe you can get. I think that Prizm card went under 500 at one point not too long ago.
Crazy.
So I think it's just the sort of the lift of basketball cards in general that kind of brought it back up. But I'm with Clark. I think the rolling the dice on back-to-back MVPs, and Jokic is arguably the best player in the NBA, arguably, right? And even if you're just a fantasy player, he's by far number one in fantasy. He's just like number one all around. Yeah, he's a big man, and big men kind of get disrespected. But he plays different. He's like an entertaining big man. Like the assists that he throws, the IQ, the type of basketball that he plays. So I'm going to pick Jokic by a hair. I think both cards are amazing, but man, to get one of the best players in the NBA for under 600, possibly even 500. Oh boy.
What a deal.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally agree. Another good one. All right. Awesome. Another great show, guys. Thanks again to Chris for the Bobby Orr versus Gretzky pick one. And if any of our listeners have one of their own, you could always submit it to us on Instagram at Cards to the Moon, all one word, or at 5cardguys as well. And if you missed the last couple of shows, we announced recently that we'll be having a second podcast episode every other Friday, in addition to our weekly regular Tuesday episodes. So you can go back and catch our first new Friday episode that just passed, where we took a deeper dive into the top 10 active NBA players with the highest career average points per game, just to see which ones were underrated and overrated in the hobby. So go check that out. All right, thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed the pod, we appreciate the 5 stars or positive reviews. And yeah, thanks again. See you later. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.